Which camera should you buy? Do you actually need to buy a camera right now, or can you wait a little bit? Stay with me as I cover the best cameras for filmmakers today. I'll discuss the big updates coming to the market over the next 5 months. 2020 is indeed going to be a big year for cameras. The 2020 Summer Olympics are hosted in Tokyo, Japan. Canon, Nikon, Panasonic, and Fujifilm will all put their best foot forward to deliver something impressive to the market. Canon is releasing their flagship camera, the 1DX Mark III, and is actively promoting it right now. The EOS R Mark II and the Canon 5D Mark V will also be announced. Sony will announce the a7S III. The a7S II was released back in 2015 and was an absolute low-light monster. Use of contrast detect autofocus means that continuous autofocus performance is not really that great. You'll need to use manual autofocus to get good results. So consider the a7 IV instead if you want reliable autofocus. The a7S III is definitely a camera to watch out for, but it's going to be at the higher end of the ordinary filmmaker's budget. The autofocus should be much improved over the previous version. Next is the Fuji X-T4. The X-T3 is an amazing camera even today. I almost purchased one this summer but held off due to the lack of IBIS and the limited library of lenses that have image stabilization. But the video from this camera is absolutely amazing in all resolutions. 10-bit 420 internal with H.265, 422 clean HDMI out. Fuji, like Sony and Panasonic, have tossed everything into their cameras. They're not crippling their cameras, but producing the best that they can. Not only does the X-T3 have H.265, but it can be selected for 1080p as much as 4K. It also has a high bitrate for 4K. If your computer can handle H.265, use it. File sizes are half that of H.264, and it provides more dynamic range and detail. The Panasonic GH5 is an amazing camera and still used by many YouTubers. This powerful video-centric camera offers everything. It still provides a ton of value at $1,300. Continuous autofocus is terrible, so rely on manual focus to get incredible results. There are tons of videos showing how poor this is, so if you are shooting event work or doing YouTube videos or pull manual focus all the time, this is an amazing camera that should be on your short list. If, however, you need reliable autofocus for run and gun work, it is not. I got so excited talking about the GH5 that I almost forgot the GH6, which is due to be released in 2020. Rumors indicate that Panasonic will provide the same contrast detect autofocus that's found in the S1H. The S1H is an amazing camera, but it still depends on contrast detect autofocus. It still hunts, it's still slow. It's not for run and gun work. It's not for those that need continuous autofocus. It's more suitable for studio work. And what about 8K? It had been speculated that the GH6 might debut Panasonic's 8K video technology, but the company recently confirmed that it won't produce 8K in a camera until 2022. Sony, Panasonic, and Fuji have taken market share from Canon and Nikon. They have purpose-built video cameras. Photography capabilities are important, but they're secondary in the GH5, X-T3, and a7S II. Canon developed a mirror strategy. Each of their cameras is purpose-built for photographers. Video capabilities are important, but come in second, and they've lost market share to Sony, Panasonic, and Fuji. Canon's tactics might be changing, at least with the Canon 1DX Mark III. The video features announced by Canon are impressive, and are the photo features. The video features provide us with everything we've asked for other than 8K, but Canon is known for crippling their video features. Remember removing 24 frames a second and all I? Or how about 8-bit motion JPEG in the 5D? or 120 frames per second in 720. Oh, and 120 frames per second in 1080 on the 90D. And the list goes on. Canon has gone out of the way since October to correct some of their mistakes, adding back 24 frames a second, and advising the market about the Canon 1DX Mark III well in advance of its official announcement date and release date. They are actively promoting their innovation technologies in the 1DX. We are looking into using technology as much as possible, like new processors and new sensors, and pushing those boundaries. And if the 1DX Mark III is going to tell you anything about what we have going on, potentially in the future, it should be a good sign. The 1DX Mark III sounds like it's going to be a powerhouse of a camera, but it is expected to cost upwards of $10,000 fully kitted out. $6,000 to $7,000 for the body, about $1,000 for CF Express cards, and several grand for a lens and adapters. And then don't forget a small contribution to your local taxman. But this is the top of the line flagship camera. It really is a pro camera. I wouldn't even try to justify this camera for the ordinary filmmaker. A more budget-friendly full-frame camera would be the 5D Mark V or the EOS R. The EOS R Mark II will be announced in the first 3 months, and the 5D Mark V will be announced in the second half. These are the upper end of the ordinary filmmaker's budget. I'm more interested in the EOS R Mark II, as mirrorless is where lens development has moved. It is very difficult to predict what Canon will include in their cameras. It's even more difficult to predict what they may cripple. No one imagined that they would remove 24 frames a second, did they? The 5D Mark IV video features were closely matched to the 1DX Mark II. The 1DX Mark II had 4K 60 with motion JPEG, and the 5D Mark IV had 4K 30 with motion JPEG. They both had 60 frames at 1080. The 1DX Mark II had 120 frames per second in 1080, whereas the 5D had it in 720. The 1DX Mark III has 4K 60, 422 internal RAW. We could expect the 5D Mark V to have 4K 60, 422, H.265 or H.264, or simply offer 4K 30 RAW at 422. But 4K 60 is no longer top of the line. It's expected at this price range. The Panasonic S1H offers 6K video. The A7S III is rumored to have 4K 120. Canon News reports that Canon is looking to create high efficiency in the movement force and to improve the linearity of the magnetic circuit for position detection, both of which are important to moving a large full-frame sensor quickly and with a high degree of accuracy. We will see IBIS in Canon cameras in 2020, but which cameras will get it? Rumors indicate all cameras will receive it. All we know is Canon is working on it, and it sounds like they are putting some effort into it. What about zebras or focus peaking? The EOS R does have focus peaking, which is great for those that pull manual focus. Log. Canon does provide C-Log in both the EOS R and as an upgrade in the 5D. RAW is in the 1DX Mark III, as is C-Log. I know I come across a bit as a Canon fanboy sometimes. I use Canon every day and I'm familiar with it. They are easy to use, they have great autofocus, and a deep, high-quality lens library. But I'm tired of being let down, and so has the market. Many have moved away from Canon. I plan to upgrade to the 80D, but the 80D was a minor upgrade to the 70D and there was no 4K. So I waited and I planned to upgrade to the 90D, but they removed 24p and all-I, gave me soft 4K and locked focus in 120 frames. So now I'm looking to the 5D and the EOS R while I am watching closely for the A7S III. I don't see myself going for the X-T4 or the GH6 as I'm ready to move to full frame. Why stick with Canon? Huge lens library. In the end, the lens options do matter more than the body, which is why I'm willing to compromise on the body. Lenses are forever, bodies usually last a few years. Why buy Canon if you don't already have Canon lenses? I can't give you a good reason today. Too much will be refreshed in the next 5 months by Photokina. If you can wait, wait. If you need a camera before Christmas, I would not buy the GH5 knowing that the GH6 is likely to be announced in May. The same goes for the Sony. The a7S III is supposed to be a beast, similar in scope to what the Canon is announced in their 1DX Mark III. The a7S III is Sony's biggest secret, and it's even being kept from many of Sony's internal teams. The a7S III will retain the same identity of a low-resolution sensor and extreme low-light performance, adding that usable high ISOs are more important than oversampling. Kenja Tanaka goes further and says, the basic expectation is for things like 4K 60, 10-bit, 422, and a lot of manufacturers are doing that right now. But I want to think in a different way and create something that goes beyond the expectations of our customers. It's easy to add 4K 60, but beyond these specs, a lot of customers have other kinds of demands, and that's what we're researching. What does this mean for the ordinary filmmaker? If you can wait, wait. Wait until Photokina before making a decision. If you need something now, these are my top APS-C picks. The Canon 90D is excellent for run and gun and general purpose use. It's also the lowest price of the bunch. The XE3, great in run and gun and general use, but has really good high detail 1080p and 4K. The GH5 is great for YouTube and event work where you're going to rely on that manual focus. It also has great 4K and 1080p detail. If you don't have Canon glass, consider waiting for the a7S III or the Panasonic S1. Canon is nowhere to be seen in the top 10 cameras sold in Japan. The EOS R Mark II needs to be innovative. It needs to borrow technology from the 1DX Mark III to have a chance. It should have 10-bit 422 internal, C-Log, 4K 60, IBIS, and the new autofocus from the 1DX Mark III. Oh, and 120 frames per second in 1080p with autofocus. This would make us all very happy. RAW would be nice, but we don't need that. 422 is also very nice, but I could settle for 10-bit 420. 4K 60 is important, but detail 4K 30 is a must. If it meets these capabilities, it will be a great camera for the ordinary filmmaker. However, any predictive model I've come up with is filled with errors. With the 1DX Mark III, we should see a very formidable 5D and EOS R. I'm sorry I can't be more precise, but Canon's very hard to predict these days. We'll just have to wait and see. But I do feel that after the 1DX Mark III announcement, Canon realizes it has to properly address video seriously in their cameras. That's it for now. Please click like and subscribe. Your likes and subscribe really help keep this channel going. Click the bell up top to receive notifications of new videos. See you soon.